Camels kneel at a Saharan salt mine as blocks are lashed to wooden saddles, and far to the south a market on a bend of the Niger River waits with gold dust sealed in gourds. Between those 2 points stretches heat, wind, and a practiced rhythm of movement. This case asks how trans-Saharan trade in salt and gold turned Timbuktu into a hinge between desert and river. The core idea is simple. Because the north prized gold for coins and the south prized salt for life and storage, merchants built a system that carried each to the other. Timbuktu thrived as the midway ledger, where caravans met boats, weights met scales, and news met law. A caravan, in plain words, is a group of travelers moving together for safety and logistics. Apply it here, and you see lines of camels, drovers, guards, guides, and brokers who share wells, watch posts, and wages. Together they turn a lethal landscape into a corridor. First, the salt. Desert mines like Taghaza and later Taudeni cut slabs of crystalline rock, hard, grey, and precise in weight. A camel typically carried about 4 slabs, roughly the load a strong animal could manage across dunes day after day. Salt mattered, because bodies need it, herds need it, and meat keeps longer with it. In the savannah, blocks might be grated into meals or traded in chunks small enough to count as money, which meant a northern stone could become southern currency in markets that lived far from the sea. Next came the gold. Forests and savannas to the southwest, Bambuk, Bure, and later Akan fields, washed fine dust from rivers and panned it into measured packets. Mediterranean mints wanted that metal for stable coinage, so gold moved north even as salt moved south. Therefore a chain of towns strung the route together. Sijil Massa or Tuat funneled goods from Morocco and the Atlas. Walata and Chingeti guarded entry to the Sahel. Timbuktu and Gao linked the desert to the Niger. At each stop, taxes, storage, and services turned distance into revenue for rulers and notables. Time was the trade's sternest partner. A crossing from Taudeni to Timbuktu took on the order of 40 days if weather and wells held. Caravans marched at night or in the cool hours, halting under canvas or rock shade, while the sun erased footprints. Guides earned their pay in memory. They carried maps in the mind, angles of stars, tastes of water, colors of sand that hinted at a buried ridge. Because wells could fail, routes bent around news. If one cistern soured, the line shifted toward another. Timbuktu worked because it stitched systems. Boats on the Niger brought grain, cola, and people from the interior. Camels brought salt, copper, cloth, and paper from the north. Brokers translated not only language but custom, converting a river's habits into desert terms and back again. Weighing was the heart of trust. Gold dust moved in quills and leather pouches and sat on pans beside polished stone weights. Salt blocks were counted and graded, and each contract wrote its own exchange rate for that season's conditions. Because Islam traveled with merchants, law and learning followed the trade. Qadis wrote contracts, scholars taught at Sankore and other madrasas, letters in Arabic let a promise at one oasis bind a debtor at another. Religion did not replace profit. It supplied tools, oaths, scribes, and shared calendars that kept profit predictable. Power noticed and shaped the flow. Rulers taxed caravans, posted guards, and licensed guides. When empires shifted, Gao to Mali to Songhai, customs and tolls shifted as well. If politics secured wells and ferries, the hub prospered. If war closed a crossing, traffic scattered to rival routes. Not every cargo shines. Along with salt and gold came enslaved people taken in raiding or debt, a harsh fact recorded in ledgers and chronicles. The tone here must stay clear. We note their presence without spectacle because markets can turn human lives into goods when power permits it. Daily life on the trail ran by repetition. Before dawn, drovers checked hobbles, tightened cords, and counted slabs. By mid-morning, a file of animals swayed into heat shimmer. At night, tea smoked above charcoal, and the day's distances were turned into stories to steady young hands. At the city, work changed shape. Warehouse doors groaned, bales of Saharan cloth stacked beside sacks of grain. Boatmen argued for a place at the sandbar. A broker measured gold dust twice. A clerk chalked the tax, and a messenger carried a folded letter upriver to a partner at Jenne. Risk set the rules of payment. A buyer might pay part at the hub and part on delivery, or settle through a third party trusted by both sides. Because dunes move and wells fail, no one put all profit in a single route or a single season. Neutral ground mattered. Timbuktu's markets, mosques and guest houses offered spaces where strangers could become customers, and customers could become partners, seen again each year. Which meant the city's reputation, its fairness, its scribes, its ability to keep the night watch, was as valuable as its walls. Numbers help us feel the scale. A large caravan might number hundreds or even 1,000 camels, each hauling something like 150 kilograms across 700 rough kilometers. Those are round figures. Exact counts vary with season, drought, and the confidence of the men who keep the lists. We should mark uncertainty and move on. Chroniclers disagree about volumes of gold in a given century, and prices fluttered with harvests, raiding, and floods. But the pattern holds over centuries. Stones from the desert became food and coin in the south, while bright metal from the south became currency and gilding in the north. Books were cargo too. Copyists sold scholarship page by page, law, grammar, astronomy, and wealthy families endowed libraries whose catalogues still survive. In a city where trade timed the year, knowledge became another form of stored value. There was always a boundary condition. If rain failed, pastures shrank and herds weakened. If a ruler fell, taxes doubled without warning. If grain ran cheap, buyers spent more on cloth and learning. The system breathed with weather and politics, never quite the same on two crossings. Even the river was a schedule. When the Niger rose, boats could hug the banks safely and carry heavier loads. When it fell, sandbars rose like teeth and forced transshipment at shallow bends. Caravans timed their arrival to meet that pulse, so salt could move from hump to hull without lingering in the sun. The Atlantic eventually wrote a competing story. Coastal trade drew gold and people toward ships that sailed west, and new routes thinned the old ones. Yet the desert road did not vanish. It adapted, contracted, and carried what the coast could not, deep into the 19th century. Imagine one closing scene of exchange. A camel is unburdened. 4 grey slabs slide to the ground. A boy runs to fetch the scale. A pouch of gold dust dark as river mud rests on the pan until the beam levels. Hands lift, not in ceremony, but in work, and a desert becomes a marketplace, one balance at a time. Finally, think of the geography differently. The Sahara is not only a barrier, it is a bridge built out of knowledge. Wells remembered, stars read, taxes tallied, and promises kept across long distances. Timbuktu, on its river bend, was where the bridge met water and turned stone into value. The takeaway is this: deserts are bridges, not walls. When roots, rules, and trust align, even the emptiest spaces connect worlds. If this open case file brought that connection to life, like and subscribe for the next episode.